Hello everyone! As is, I am back once more. Fortunately, Mike Bluehair couldn't make it. He is now out sick with food poisoning, but I have someone else here that's going to be sort of a special co-host today. It's Merbeast. Why don't you go ahead and do a quick announcement? I just wanted to make sure also your volume's good enough on my side so everybody won't be having to tune in a little bit, lean in close to hear your voice.
Hello, everybody. I have been called a troll, so I'm here to be the troll for this stream.
Hold on. It turns out my audio is not pulling right from one of my capture things. Okay. Or it doesn't look like... Oh, I know what's going on. Hold on. I can fix this real fast.
Unjustly.
Yeah, well, it's not... No, it says it's going to the right spot. Okay.
If there weren't technical difficulties, then it wouldn't be a stream.
Oh, yeah. As is, I'm always having to fight with this stuff. It's a marriage of a lot of stuff. Why don't you go ahead and say something else real fast?
All right. I'm looking forward to talking about Akins v. Knight.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I got you dialed in now, so.
Yay.
Yeah. Yeah, for whatever reason, I have Discord talking to one spot, but apparently my one stream capture device is not properly grabbing it there. But hey, everybody, I see you're on Twitch there, Johnny No Last Name. Give a quick shout out to you guys over there on the Twitch side of things. But yeah, we are gonna sort of talk about Akins v. Knight some more, about especially since now he has you have the document more or less in front of you, right?
I have the document in front of me.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this pulled up. Also, we listened for the intro music, guys. Techno Acts, the breakdown. I figured that would be appropriately titled song name for what we're gonna be doing as we dig into this. So, which aspect should we discuss first? Do you want to talk about your new found discovery, or do you want to just cover something a little bit more open about what just the general what Akins v. Knight specifically is about?
Well, I love being the bearer of bad news, so yeah. So one of the, I don't know if you have it pulled up in front of you.
Yeah, but, I do. I have both the district decision and the appeals decision.
Yeah, I'm just going to look at the district court decision. That's the one that has all the details in it.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the July 27th, 2011 incident. It's subpart C.
Okay, I'm going to scroll down and get that pulled up for everybody. July 27th, you said, right? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, July 27th, 2011.
Ah, the high crime neighborhood thing. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, no, I don't want to start there. I want to start at the other one. I want to start at the June 6, 2010, subpart B. That's the one that's the bad news.
Okay.
All right, so in this particular one, whenever you get there, Akins made an...
Go ahead.
Okay. Akins made an illegal U-turn while driving, and obviously that is a violation of the vehicle code for Missouri. And he had a couple of the people in the car with him, and the officer asked him if there were any illegal drugs or weapons in the car. Mr. Akins, not being as bright as he should be, admitted that there was a legal rifle on the rear floorboard. Now, I looked up the Missouri laws regarding firearms, and if it was a concealable weapon, then he'd have to have it unloaded, and the ammunition would have to be stored separately, or it'd have to be in a locked container. But there's nothing about rifles that I could find. So it's apparently very legal. The officer then pulled everybody out of the car, which we know that they can do. But then he searched the car, which I thought certainly must be a violation. It's got to be a Fourth Amendment violation. The court went on to examine that incident, and the court relied on Michigan v. Long. which is a U.S. Supreme Court case from 1983. And it completely broke my heart. I remembered something about this. I think they called it the wingspan rule. But what this case held was that if the officer is going to put you back into the car for whatever reason, and he believes you're dangerous, and in this case, apparently Akins had a weapons violation, and obviously there was the rifle in the car, he can then proceed to do a Terry search for any spot that might conceivably hold a weapon that would be in wingspan of any of the passengers of the vehicle. So that's basically the entire passenger cabin you got to search for free. Screw your Fourth Amendment.
Yeah,
that's was the bad news for the day.
Wow, that's quite shocking. That's Michigan v. Long, guys. I haven't even had a chance to read it myself. In fact, he brought that up to me right before the show. When I got him pulled in the room, he was telling me about it, and I'm just like, wait, how old is this? Yeah, 1983, so that's quite the interesting...
Yeah. It's 463 U.S. 1032, if anybody wants to pull it up and read it for themselves. It's pretty ridiculous. In Michigan v. Long, they saw a hunting knife on the floorboard, and because of the high incidence of drive-by knifings, they felt that they got to search the whole passenger cabin, and they ended up finding marijuana in Michigan v. Long. Now, they didn't find anything like that in Akins, but they did have him out sitting on the side of the road for, I believe, 20 or 30 minutes while they conducted this search. So,
yeah, it specifically states at the bottom of page 5, Atkins says Schlude, I think it's how to properly pronounce it, moved some items out of the car during the search for the entire encounter lasted about 20 to 30 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah,
but
so go ahead.
Yeah, the big ones that we covered, you covered and you pointed out, was subpart C, the next one, and so I covered it too. And I hate to rehash old ground, but in this particular one, the officer made the determination that Akins was leaving a high crime neighborhood. Now, there's nothing other than the officer's testimony to back that up. So, congratulations. The officer began following, and he observed the occupants become animated. Now, this was at night, so take that for what you will. The driver began behaving differently once the driver noticed him following, which obviously no one ever acts different once they notice a police officer following them. I'm sure you don't.
Oh, yeah. I mean, how should I put it? When you're driving down the highway and everybody's going 75 and a 65, and all of a sudden there's a cop coming up, everybody slows down to the speed limit all of a sudden.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Well, apparently, doing that is evidence that crime may be afoot. The driver engaged in what the officer's training and experience taught him were avoidance techniques, i.e. changing lanes twice and then turning into a Taco Bell parking lot. So every time you've gotten the munchies at night, you have been engaging in avoidance techniques. Congratulations. I didn't know you were such a trained criminal.
Oh man, yeah, that's quite surprising. So my Taco Bell runs back in Alaska were apparently cop avoidance techniques.
Yeah, it's amazing. And somebody filmed him, and it's all pretty disturbing that a cop would think that he had reasonable suspicion. Now, I do want to point out that the they did an internal investigation, and the police department thought that he was wrong. They thought the officer was wrong. The police department thought it was attention. If you look at the bottom of or around page 9, the Columbia Police Department Internal Affairs investigation concluded the incident at Taco Bell was a detention rather than a consensual contact under all the circumstances, and that Sanders, that's the officer, had violated a police department guideline concerning seizure of persons within the limits of the Fourth Amendment, as interpreted by the judiciary. The police department thought he did wrong.
Yeah, that's. I mean, for me, right there, I was like, that everything of that incident just stunk I mean, some sort of Fourth Amendment violation myself. So.
And what does every cop watcher or First Amendment auditor or civil rights protester know that a police officer needs to detain you?
Reasonable, articulable suspicion
Of
a specific crime.
Right?
Of a specific crime.
Of a specific crime. What crime did that officer suspect he committed?
There wasn't one stated. That's the thing.
The officer never stated what crime. It's absolutely unbelievable that this judge had her head so far up her butt that she couldn't figure out that the officer suspected of a generic, inchoate, unparticularized suspicion that maybe crime might somewhere possibly be kind of sort of associated with these fellas because they went to Taco Bell at night. There's no indication the driver had any particular idea of what crime to investigate. So how could he be investigating a crime? So when the court decided that it wasn't consensual, because it wasn't, the court held that the officer had reasonable suspicion that crime was afoot, and so that warranted the brief detention. Unbelievable.
The judge actually stated that in the decision at some point?
Yep. That's so they okay, so we're on the bottom of page 26.
Okay, yeah, I just scrolled there. I actually just managed to fall right upon it when I was scrolling down.
The objective facts taken as a whole reasonably warranted a suspicion of criminal activity. At a minimum, a reasonable officer would not have known under the circumstances that his conduct was unlawful.
That's
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, if you continue down on page, where are we at?
It's on the top
28.
of page 28.
Yeah,
okay.
Page 28, I think. In any event, inasmuch as the investigative stop Sanders performed was objectively permissible, as discussed above, an inquiry into his motive is precluded. And
okay, there it is. Yeah. And they cite Smithson v. Eldrick. Did you have a chance to look that one up, possibly? Because I definitely haven't looked that one up. So I haven't done any citation research on the Fourth Amendment stuff that he had. I was more or less specifically looking at the First Amendment aspects, but I know you definitely been touching upon the Fourth Amendment. So,
well, I try to touch on the things that I know and understand.
Yeah.
This Smithson v. Aldrich is apparently a 8th Circuit case out of Iowa. Same circuit.
Yeah,
that's just on summary judgment. That's not really applicable. So that's what that link was to. Yeah. So they said she said in there somewhere that it was that he didn't have at a minimum. Yeah. So it's the objective facts taken as a whole reasonably warranted a suspicion of criminal activity. That's a Terry level stop. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that was the Fourth Amendment part.
Yeah, and so possibly, as you pointed out, maybe this judge should have recused himself from this specific case, making a decision like that on a Fourth Amendment.
Well, so the recusal, I don't know if you went over that very in detail, but apparently Aikens had some background with her, so that's why he wanted her to recuse herself.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much that influenced it. I keep seeing really stupid people in positions of power. So you got me. I mean, maybe she's stupid, maybe she's biased. I can't tell you which one it is.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is we're just, I mean, all we really got to go off of is these court decision paperworks, which doesn't necessarily give, I mean, too much information on the surrounding circumstances of the trial itself, so.
Yeah, I think that was the bulk of the appellate decision. They really went over all of that, but that didn't really, I wasn't looking at that specifically because the precedential value of that to me wasn't very important. I'm more interested in the civil rights aspect of it, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment violations.
Yeah, which is,
second, I guess, the kind of worse Second Amendment issues there, but Missouri's pretty good on the Second Amendment.
Yeah, I see citation. Well, I see reference. Hey, there's I mean, Second Amendment issues and all that stuff, and I'm just sitting here like, it's a little bit stretching on the Second Amendment because I sort of expect the police to react how they did with some of the issues that were brought up with the weapons stuff. Mm-hmm. But I mean, as is, there's definitely like the search aspect there. I'm just like, that didn't really sit too well. And then after you discovering and mentioning that Michigan v. Long case, I'm just like, and telling me about it, I'm just like, oh boy, well, that's a new aspect that I will need to keep in mind for the future. And in fact, I hope anybody that's doing civil rights stuff that might warrant extra police attention should look up and keep that specific case law in mind, since that is a SCOTUS case law.
Yeah, some free legal advice to everybody who's going to be doing First Amendment auditing or anything where you're going to come into contact with the police, presumably, and they're going to be looking at you under a microscope. Do a check on your car before you go out. If you're going to take your car, do a check on it. Make sure all your lights work. Make sure all your paperwork's in order. Make sure you've got valid tags, all that fun stuff. Go through your car ahead of time to make sure that there's not traces of anything. People think that, oh, well, California has made it legal to have pot, but it's still a federal crime. They could still stop you for it and do all this fun stuff and mess with you just because. So make sure your nose is clean when you go out there. Don't give them any ammunition to hold against you.
Yeah, in fact, actually, over on Am I Free to Go, one of the things that a lot of the the guys that participate in that subreddit, they talk about, don't give them ammunition against you where possible. I mean, if you're going to drive there, park in a place where they're not going to easily figure out the vehicle. Don't go directly back to the vehicle. Make sure your stuff's good. There was actually one instance where I was going to go and document a wildfire. And it's like, you know what? The vehicle I'm driving, I think the tags expire this year, and it's getting close. And so I actually pulled over the road before I got maybe a mile down the road. I was like, I better check the tag or fast. Sure thing I did. Good thing I checked. The tag just expired 2 days prior. And I was like, well, I am going back. So I'm not doing any filming with expired registration on the vehicle I'm driving. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you give them an inch, then they're going to start taking that mile. And if they actually have probable cause, then they could drag that detention out to try to figure out, like, oh, well, I'm going to write you a ticket, but first we're going to talk about this, and who knows what they could pull out of you. So it's just not a good situation to be in.
In fact, actually, I think what's going to help out, I don't know if you're familiar with News Now Houston's case over, I can't remember, what was at one of the Border Patrol checkpoints, inland Border Patrol checkpoints he drove through, they hinned him up, and he stated that they planned a contraband on him. And he stated that he went and did a thorough walkover of the vehicle before he started driving to make sure he didn't have anything that would be considered illegal in his possession and all that stuff. And so it'll be quite interesting to see how that actually plays out in his favor if things go ahead with.
I thought he said that he said they didn't charge him on anything. I thought somebody I might be misremembering, but I thought he said somebody showed up and said, "Nuh-uh, guys,"
No.
and that magically disappeared.
No. The charge, he never got charged, according to his statements, that to me personally and what he's made publicly, that he wasn't charged, and that he was cut and let go. But there is an ongoing federal investigation, from I think DOJ, I think it was, over Border Patrol.
Into the Border Patrol.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting if it might open up actual criminal charges where he will be a party witness into in that issue. And so that was pretty much what I was making reference to on that aspect there.
I did like his refusal at the Border Patrol. One of the last videos he did, he pulled up. "How you doing?" "Oh, good. How are you?" "Oh, good." "Are you a U.S. citizen, sir?" "I'm not answering any questions." "Okay." They ran the dog around and then he was gone. I love it when people do that. I'm not recommending anybody does that because I've seen them break windows and stuff. But if you do it and you film it and you get away with it, I'm gonna laugh right along with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just they pull all kinds of verbal stuff, and depending on who's asking the question, they'll either sit there and hold you hem you up for a while. I know James Freeman there. I think he was held up for a good 45 minutes because he refused to answer their questions before they finally let him go.
Speaking of which, kind of tying all this in together, there was a video that High Desert put up where him and Ida Foxy Queen were pulled over. Apparently he had a tail light out or something. Do you remember that? It's just fairly recent.
I haven't really been paying attention to my to my subscribe feed. So, and even then, the subscribe feed's essentially crap. I'm thinking about trying to get some sort of third-party program put together to actually pull videos. Let you know when channels you like put out new videos and stuff like that. But no, I am actually not familiar with them getting in the traffic stop. I didn't know they actually did something together. So, why don't you go ahead and tell the audience about it?
So apparently he had some sort of a minor traffic violation. They had just done an audit. It was obviously the police were keeping their eye out. They wanted to identify him and or hassle him, see what they can get. So they ended up doing the stop. The police ended up pulling everybody out of the car, as they can do. That's MIMS, I think. Supreme Court decision is for their own safety. They could pull everybody out of the car.
Yeah,
and
but they have to.
Foxy Queen.
Yeah, but if I remember correctly, they got to specifically cite with their reasoning of officer safety. If they state for some other reason, then it becomes a different kind of situation.
I don't know that they have to say it. The reason that they're allowed to do it is because of officer safety, but I don't think they actually have to tell you.
No, they don't have to tell you. It's just that if they, like in any of their paperwork, they state any other reason besides officer safety, basically you're now able to pursue an issue on the ground. But most police officers, I think, are familiar with that, and generally their go-to getaway with a lot of stuff is officer safety or something like that. And News Now Tennessee states it's MIMS v. Pennsylvania is the actual case law on that. So, but go ahead and continue, man.
It was Ida Foxy Queen who was recording. The officer pulled her out, and he just kept badgering her for ID, badgering her for ID, badgering her for ID. She was trying to refuse, and the officer was like, "Well, you've been detained. You've been detained. You've been detained." I just want everybody to be well aware that in California there is no requirement that you ID if you're detained. Yes, the passenger in the car is detained if the driver's pulled over, but that officer does not have a right to your ID. He has a right to the driver's ID because the driver was driving, but he doesn't have a right to your ID. Anytime an officer pushes you that long and that hard to get your ID, and they keep threatening you with arrest and threatening to put you in cuffs and put you in the back of their car, there is a greater than zero chance that they're bluffing you. They're pushing to try to get that ID. They know they can't arrest you for it. And I say they know they can't arrest you for it, knowing full well that Mexican Padilla was arrested by two brain dead idiots who actually arrested him for failure to ID, but whatever.
Yeah, I haven't.
They can't you.
Yeah, I heard about him getting arrested and getting out. I actually haven't watched any of the footage from that. I just heard about that actually. I think it was early this morning or something like that. But yeah, I heard that it's looking pretty bad on that police department, and I guess also someone mentioned that JoJo 88 or whatever, he was illegally detained. I'm not sure the specifics on that either, but I just got a quick glimpse of a little bit of video, and it looks like they didn't really like him filming. And I think actually he is still a teenage. Oh, well, he's under the age of 18. He's actually going out there and doing all this stuff. So look, I mean, I give him a hands up for. I mean, applause for getting out there young and all that stuff. But I mean, you got to be careful when you're doing this, even when you're a minor, because your rights work differently compared to as a full-blown adult. As the cameraman over there in California had to deal with similar, well, slightly different situations when he was detained by the police, and he couldn't be released without his parents showing up.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I don't think you lose any like First Amendment rights.
Oh no,
it's right to film.
It's more like detention and stuff. You do have a little bit greater defenses for against like making testimony and stuff like that, but that's sort of a little bit dependent, of course, also on which state you're going to be in and how their laws apply to minors and stuff like that, and how that's all handled.
Well, that'll be interesting to look at. I'll have to go through. Can someone post a link in the chat to that so I can take a look at it?
For JoJo's detention there, or
yeah,
or the video?
If that's been recorded.
Yeah, someone stated that they got it mirrored. Dang it, I don't have it up anymore. I had it pulled up because I saw the an update icon on my thing and I pulled it up. And Johnny, no last name. I'll give you attention when I can over there, but there's not really much happening on the Twitch side, it looks like, on the chat. So, and as is, we're going to be sort of discussing more of the boring, dry topics of the legal aspects. But I think covering this aspect is sort of vital and important too within strategic non-compliance, the show itself, kind of thing. Yeah, hold on, let's see. I'm trying to get it pulled up here. I need to move this chat box here. That's what's blocking me. Give me a second here. Can I pull that up? Ah, yes, I do have it, and I will go ahead and post that in the chat, and I'll send it directly to you on Discord real fast.
Hey there. Fast will make your PC.
Oops, I got the audio coming through, guys. Yeah, but I haven't, had a chance to review it myself or anything. So I'll just post that in the general chat there, so that way you can pull that up, and I'll post that in the chat for those that are watching. Oh, that reminds me, I got to give quick attention to yes, Alzheimer's sucks. Yes, that is Murbeast, that's on here. Post that there, and I'll just post that over here, so this way it goes out on all the chats. There we go. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and dig into the First Amendment aspect of the court decision? Did you want to take a talk about the how the time, place, serve, manner restriction stuff a little bit further, since that was sort of like the big issue that brought everybody's attention up on the this 8th Circuit case?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure that this really did address any time, place, or manner restrictions. The issues that he had was he was filming inside a police station. He was told by just an assistant of some sort that he couldn't film, someone who's like a what do they call it, a CSA?
And I just know it was like one of their like front desk people.
Yeah, it's just a nobody. Told him he couldn't film. He filed a complaint. He talked to a PIO, and the PIO told him that, oh yeah, absolutely, you can film. it's not a problem, and we are talking to that assistant. But I don't actually think that that was actually somebody who's working for the police department. There was I think they were
a community service aid. That's what they specifically called it. And on number 5, it's at in the middle of page 14.
Page 14. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't think that the community service aide was an actual employee who's not a defendant in this case. So a community service aide told him he couldn't film the lobby. The PIO told him that he could, and she had to follow up with the CIA so the CIA would know that he couldn't tell people not to film him.
Yeah.
So that's not a time, place, or manner restriction. That is an employee that didn't know the policy, or some sort of an aide that didn't know the policy.
Yeah, it sounds like it was I mean, you had the left hand not knowing what the right hand kind of thing going on. It just seemed to me like an understandable confusion on something that's not seen every day. It's not a common thing, and I sort of give credit to the police department that's saying, hey, the PIO saying, yo, you can film here, and went and talked to the CSA specifically, hey, they're able to do that. And the CSA just made an assumption without really thinking about it.
But just imagine if there had been no stink about it whatsoever. Just imagine, like, if he had gone in there, he'd filmed the guy getting the complaint, and nothing had happened. What do you think he would have done with that footage? I mean, it would have gone nowhere. It would have been nothing. No one would have cared. Yeah. They feed into this stuff by reacting to it.
And I mean, that's one of the things I sort of point out there is I don't go out there fishing really for much of a reaction. I mean, yeah, my Punjabi outfit might lean into that a little bit, but I am testing civil rights from a slightly different avenue. I mean, we're legally allowed to wear essentially what we want as long as it's like not public nudity kind of stuff.
Last I checked, freedom of religion is one of the is the first thing that the First Amendment talks about.
Yeah. And so, I mean, just dressing up as someone that doesn't look like they're from this, from the area is an important aspect, just to ensure that people's civil rights are being respected, because there have been instances where tourists or people that are not even from this country that do have civil rights in this country don't have their rights being respected. And so just being able to try and test that aspect, test on that aspect of civil rights is sort of important. And that's why I don't completely discourage like the foul language kind of stuff where people are out there cursing out the cops or whatever, or giving them the middle finger, because while it's disliked, it's poor taste by the general public, it is testing for a civil right that we hold and has been upheld in several court cases. I can't remember any major actual case law on that. I think there is 1 or 2 case laws on that. You probably might know off the top of your head, but there has been several settlements over that aspect with police departments and several successful district court level lawsuits for civil rights violations with police departments that have gone anywhere from about $5,000. I think the highest one was about $36,000 that I've read personally. There could be bigger payouts on that kind of thing for where police mess up and violate someone's civil rights on that issue.
Mm-hmm. So there's like you could burn a flag. We know that you can wear a shirt that says "fuck the police." That's First Amendment protected. You can swear all you want. I fully support your right to do it. I don't necessarily advocate for it, but I support your right to do it. And if somebody tries to shut you down for swearing, in general, not swearing like necessarily at someone and being confrontational, but just swearing and being vulgar or whatever, then I totally support your right to do that.
Yeah, and I actually I got a good example. I generally I keep my language fairly mild for a lot of my speaking events and stuff like that. But what was it? Matt Nuskas was sitting in a borough meeting about the that everybody showed up for with the potential burn ban ordinance, or where they're supposed to adopt something that was very open ended, and I was making reference that to like the ladies get the red fury out and stand up to the federal agencies trying to pull the wool over people's eyes, and for the guys to grow grow a pair. That I was interrupted, and I ended that at the end of the meeting. I of course used foul language, speaking out loud as a defiance and to test to see if they were going to try to push the issue further on trying to further stop me from exercising my right to speak in a public venue. I speak my mind in that aspect. And the only reason why I ended up going further with using foul language was specifically as a state that you're not going to sit here and deny me my ability to free speech, especially when I'm at a public podium where we have the right to use that language, and you don't have the right to stop me when I'm doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty, you probably might agree with that, but I mean, and I do agree. It's in poor taste. I'm not really one to use the curse words and all that stuff. I mean, but Texas Sheepdog, he's one guy that likes to test that aspect, and there's a few other people that want to exercise that aspect quite frequently. And that's why I give them a thumbs up. I was like, that's good work on you guys. And they're building up cases as is against various municipalities that have been trying to get them on that aspect. And
there is there's a disturbing the peace statute in Texas. It's like I don't remember exactly the number, but there's a disturbing the peace statute in Texas that does criminalize offensive words. So that would be something to push against. I mean, if you're trying to get that overturned, then it's probably unconstitutional if they do try to keep you from using obscene language.
Yeah, and as is, I mean, there's several like old laws on the books at the state and municipal and county levels and stuff like that they were passed way back in the day. No one's gone back to look at them to see if they're really legal or not. I know, like a good example is actually Olmos Park with that open carry ban thing on the rifles, and it was in violation of state law.
Yes,
and
violation of state law. Well, yeah, presumably it was.
Okay,
I want to be very clear about that. Presumably it was. The state statute held that the cities could only make discharges illegal, unlawful discharge of the firearm.
Oh,
but
really?
That's the only thing that the cities could legislate on, right?
Okay.
But Houston had made an ordinance that punished parents, if I remember it correctly. It would punish the parents if the parents allowed the child to get hold of the firearm and then discharge it unlawfully. So it was actually a statute against the parents for the unlawful actions of the child, and the state attorney general, in his opinion, which is not binding or anything, he thought that was a valid ordinance. So it is possible that a court would construe that Olmos Park ordinance as being directly related to the discharge. I think it's probably not a valid law. I like 95% not valid, but you can't really, like I said, there's a lot of stupid people in positions of power.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, having your perspective on that and give out further clarification kind of stuff from stuff that you have come across is actually, I mean, part of the reason why I like having you on here is just because you're able to hit from this other area. And for me, specifically, yeah, I in my opinion, I view it as it would be a violation of the state law. You brought up an aspect that it could, if it was applied in that situation, but I mean, after looking at the law a couple of times, it didn't look like that it actually fell in that aspect with the discharge. It was literally you can't open carry a rifle with any rounds in it.
Right. I completely understand that, but we're also at the point where you've got to remember that your right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And what have they done all over the place?
Infringed upon it in quite a few areas. I think
exactly.
Especially what was it? That I think it was Deer Base or something like that. Over there in a suburb of Illinois, where they banned assault rifles or something like that. The ordinance, and it's beyond just assault rifles. It's anything that specifically carries a large amount of ammo and has certain kind of attachments that can be put on, and they list off a bunch of various weapons. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, holy cow! Sounds like you're infringing to me with that one.
I don't know if you've ever looked at California's gun laws, or if you just take a minute at some point in time and Google like California legal firearms, you can't have a sporting grip. You can't have the pistol grip on a rifle. It has to be anyway. They've got a lot of stupid rules in California, which have been tested, and so far nothing like that has been overturned as far as being unconstitutional. So as dumb as it sounds, at least as far as the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution is concerned, those are. They'll probably survive the challenge. I mean, I hate it. I don't want it, but that's...
Yeah, I don't think...
My guess is going to be it'll survive.
Yeah, and it's been that case. I know quite a few of them have gone all the way... they haven't hit really SCOTUS, but they've hit the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is primarily based out of California, once more. So... Absolutely. When you're looking at it, and it's just like... This is not they keep hitting that brick wall right there, and the Ninth Circuit has been known to be how should I put it, not very gun friendly.
Overturned.
Yeah.
The Ninth Circuit is the most overturned circuit.
I mean, they have come up with some decent case laws in the past, but yeah, they got their issues too.
But you have to remember that each time the Supreme Court is denied certiorari, so. That means basically either they don't think it's worth talking about or they think it was correctly decided with the two.
Yeah, well, the thing is we just need to start having people battle it up over on the northeastern side over there, like New York, and I think Illinois is not as bad, but they're getting there, especially with the city of Chicago there. Because I know actually Chicago and Washington, D.C., and New York City, they had like these straight up like bans on firearms within the towns. I mean, within the municipal areas, and that was overturned. What was it? Almost 10 years ago, I think it was, with a SCOTUS case that dealt with that and sort of opened it up. But they sort of adjusted their laws in the meantime to make it just as equally painful to jump through the hoops to legally own a firearm in those areas.
I'm sorry, I lost you somewhere in the middle of that. What case were we talking about?
Well, I was mentioning that there could be a case that, well, we just got to get people that are fighting push back against it over in like the state of New York or in the northeastern side of the United States, where they're very strict on gun laws in a few places, and have maybe in this way there's another circuit of Court of Appeals that it goes up against. And possibly, because I don't really know of any other states besides like Illinois, New York, that have extreme gun laws. Mm-hmm. And so I was stating that just because New York City, Chicago, and Washington, D.C., they had like complete bans on civilian ownership of firearms until that Supreme Court case came around that overturned those city ordinances and stuff like that on that issue.
Are you talking about the District of Columbia v. Heller, or are you talking about
I think
McDonald versus City of Chicago?
I think it was the v. Heller case, but I could be wrong.
Heller is a real big one. That's Scalia's decision, where he held that owning a firearm is not just for the militia, but it is a It's a fundamental right that preceded the Constitution for you to have a firearm to defend your home. So a complete ban or requiring people to have a disassembled firearm or to have their firearm disassembled was unconstitutional. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, that sounds like it right there. So.
Yeah, but the problem is that what that Illinois, I think it is state, or I'm sorry, what the Illinois city was doing with the bans on attachments, that'll probably survive because the underlying firearm isn't banned.
Well, but the one over in Illinois, they actually did straight out ban several firearms that are listed, the AK-47, the variants and stuff like that are in that style of model. The list, I think I spent about 4 minutes reading through. And
right, but the list of weapons you read are automatic weapons or select fire weapons where they can be either semi or fully automatic. Like an AK-47 has select fire. It's already illegal.
Well, yeah, I'd have to double check on that stuff because I mean I have an AK and an AK style model.
AK style weapon, which is not an AK.
In which case, I probably need to look up see if there's any identifying model number on it, but I don't think there is. It's like sort of a manufactured one, like in East Europe, I think. I think actually it states it was made in Ukraine.
Yeah, unless it's capable of automatic fire, where you get more than one bullet per squeeze of the trigger, then it's not an AK.
But the thing is a lot of the weapon. They also had several weapons that were semi-automatic listed on there, like the AA-12 there, are and the sub variants of it, and that one is definitely there is a semi-automatic, and I think the semi-automatic version was included in that list. And they had some DPMS style rifles labeled in there, and those are definitely semi-automatic from what my memory serves me.
No, we'd have to go through the list sometime, but even then, what they did in the past when they had the assault weapon ban, the original one, the one that expired in 90.
It actually expired in the 2000s, but yeah. It was passed in the 90s and it lasted 10 years.
Yeah, there you go. That one listed specific models as well, and it survived, so... I don't know.
Yeah,
it's retarded, but whatever.
Yeah, Desert Sentinel stated that they banned semi-automatic weapons. Full auto is already covered. Yeah, and they I mean, as is, it was sort of... They had a lot of firearms that were listed on there, and I'm just sitting here like a good portion of these are actually semi-automatic already. You're banning something that looks scary, and I really want to see that actual aspect covered in that. Actually, let's get back on task here with what we're going over here with Atkins.
Okay.
The media...
2 more points of the First Amendment to cover on them, but go ahead.
Yeah, let's go ahead and look at the media training day aspect there.
Yeah, that's not a First Amendment issue. He wasn't invited to a party. Done. Next.
Okay. And I sort of agree. I pretty much agree with you on that part. It was an invite only. It was open to the press, and I think you covered that in when you're on the last episode, stating that it's sort of like being the press corps or something like that, or in a past conversation. Yeah.
So if specific members of the public are invited, that means that it's not open to the general public. If it was open to the general public and they said, no, you can't come in, then we start having issues, what's going on. But it's not open to the general public. It's like, you buy your tickets at Disneyland, and they let the people in with tickets, and the people who don't have tickets don't get to go in, and that's it. That's the end of the analysis.
Yeah, and I would like to make, a similar statement, actually using a legal reference. It's just like when a courtroom, There's times during a criminal trial that the courtroom will be closed to the general public, and only those people that are allowed to be in there might be the immediate family that are involved in the case, or specific witnesses or something like that that are going to be called up. In which case,
that's a due process concern. That's not actually related. That's due process. They're saying that if we allow, a lot of times when they'll do that to keep witnesses from like hearing what other witnesses are saying, so they can match stories up and things like that. So it's that kind of thing. Or if there's sensitive testimony, like if there's sexual assault testimony going on, then they don't want that kind of salacious stuff to be out there in the media. But it's
well, I was just trying to give an easier understanding for people to maybe grasp on, or a different analogy that, while not exact, it's sort of similar enough to state, there's a limited people that are going to be present, that are called upon to be in that specific space for that event. So, and I just wanted to get that analogy.
If the courtroom only holds 30 people and you're the 31st person, your First Amendment rights aren't being violated by not being allowed into the courtroom.
There you go. Perfect. An even better example. They only had room for 30 people. They sent out the invitations. There we go. Yeah. I wanted to cover that. But and I believe the other one was the Facebook page thing, right?
Yep. Facebook page. That's not a time, place, or manner restriction. That is a viewpoint or content restriction. They were specifically targeting him. They were targeting his content. That would be a First Amendment content analysis, content restriction analysis. That's a strict scrutiny deal. In order to pass strict scrutiny, there has to be I think they call it a compelling government interest, which means it's beyond important. It's compelling, like they need to do it. Absolutely no way around. You've got to take care of this. It has to be narrowly tailored to target directly that compelling government interest, and they have to leave open alternative channels and all this other fun stuff, and it's not going to fly on Facebook. Sorry.
Yeah, and as is, we've already had not really. Well, only one state's got case precedent, which is Hawaii. I think that went up to the appeals or possibly Supreme Court of that state on that issue. Yeah, I think that actually went up to the state Supreme Court. And then over in California, I know there was a judgment against, well, I can't remember if it was a judgment. Yeah, I think it was a judgment against the San Diego Police Department on how they moderated the Facebook page. And they ended up shutting it down in order to no longer deal with that, or at least their official one there. And we're currently seeing, I think, another 3 or possibly 4 civil cases that have been really launched in the last 2 years on this issue that are tackling this specific argument that since these are government-controlled forums, that you have a right to freedom of speech on these Facebook pages.
Absolutely. If the government opens it up to people to comment, then they can't start picking who gets to talk and who doesn't. They can't start censoring people because of their viewpoint, and they were definitely censoring Akins because of his viewpoint.
Yeah,
but the court just didn't care here.
Yeah, which disappointed me on that aspect. I think I called it out on that issue too, is like with the Facebook. Did. Yeah, and as is, there's even potential with Springfield Police Department over here for similar, because I got comments from several people that stated that their posts have been either deleted or been hidden where they're no longer public on their public Facebook page. And as is, once I get the basic concern out of the way with the criminal case on that, I will look to seeing about trying to force remedy on those issues. Maybe I can get it done without having to seek court action, but there's no guarantee on that aspect. And as is, I will look at that further when I get to that crossroads. My first concern is obviously dealing with the criminal case. I'm a one step at a time kind of guy. So
one interesting question would be, The court didn't even explore it really, but he was posting links to his Citizens for Justice page on the police department's Facebook. I know that Facebook has a policy for deleting spam. It's not even something that you can really control. You have to, the owner of that post would have to go in and approve it. So it could actually have been Facebook deleting, hiding. Like if he was super vulgar or something, Facebook itself could have been removing content. So that would have been interesting to figure out. And how does that interplay with the government Facebook page?
Yeah, and that's one of the other things. You can't completely discount the owners that operate the site, the website for the social media pages of doing their own thing. A good example is actually with YouTube, where they will go ahead and throw certain comments into the spam area, in which case every now and then I go in there and look and go, okay, so which one of these is actually spam, which one of these are not. And I do get my fair share of spammers, and I let them languish in purgatory there. But the ones that don't look like they're spam, they're making a comment or whatever, whether it's against me, for me, or against someone in the video or whatever, or has a history of just spouting out for random kind of stuff, I will usually give the approvals like, no, this is not spam, get it out of this box. I don't know why you're doing that.
I've actually had things come in. Since I'm blowing up over here, kids, I've got a whole bunch of subs now. Woo, not joking. But I've actually had people comment, and I get the little bell, and I look, and I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. I don't care, like, you're not going to offend me. You're just not. So, but you could try. Feel free. But I go to try to look at it to respond back, and it's just gone. And I check to see if it's in my spam filter, and nope. I have all the little boxes marked just to let everything through. I don't care. I'm not in the. I don't care what you say personally. Say whatever you want. Sticks and stones and all that. But I guess YouTube is just on some of these. They're just like, nope, we're not even letting you let it through. So. And
actually, since we pretty much covered all the big issues, I mean, it seems mostly we agree on a lot of things within it. It's just we have different personal opinion and takes on certain aspects on all that stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor to those that are in the chat to ask questions. And News Now Tennessee, what about Fort Campbell barring me from auditing? Apparently, over News Now Tennessee the other night, he just got notification that he was barred from Fort Campbell. News Now Tennessee, can you go ahead and elaborate a little bit more on that? And well, you actually had an interesting take with the military bases. I haven't sat down. Well, I listened a little bit of it, but I've been in and out of it all week, so I haven't been able to really focus much on like critical thinking. So why don't you go ahead and give your take on the military bases while News Now Tennessee types out more about what's going on when it comes to the filming, auditing of the military bases from outside or from the public street. I think it was with the public street filming or something like that, or
if you're on a public street, if you're not on base property, like if you're not on base property, then you're probably good. I do know there's a case, and it's Vandenberg something, where the state of California had easements to run Highway 1 through Vandenberg Air Force Base. In that case, a protester who was in a free speech area on Vandenberg Air Force Base, he threw pig's blood, I think, on a sign that was outside of the free speech area. He was trespassed from Vandenberg Air Force Base. And the question came up in that case where they were wondering about what about the easement that California had to run this highway 1 through Vandenberg. I think it's 1 or 101, something like that. And the court held that as long as he's just using it for its intended purpose, he could drive through it, and that wouldn't be an issue, but he wouldn't be able to use it for First Amendment purposes or anything else because Vandenberg had maintained control of the base as far as what they allowed and what they didn't allow for First Amendment stuff. And as long as it was content neutral, and it was reasonably related to maintaining order and stuff on the base, then they could do it.
Yeah, Desert Sentinel states that's the Vandenberg easement highway. Base commander still has full control over the highway. Let's see, NJ Diver, Merbeast, what happened to SCOTUS appeal by Atkins? I think I can cover that one unless you want to talk about it.
I didn't know it actually made it to the Supreme Court.
No, actually it didn't. Well, they put in the paperwork. Specifically, Black Coat Media has a short article on it. It went to they filed to have it put before the SCOTUS there, but SCOTUS kicked it back. They said they weren't going to look at the case.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with it.
Yeah, I'm sure they read it. They saw that it was just a flaming pile of poop, and like, you know what? We'd have to like rewrite the whole stupid thing, and we're just going to kick it back because it literally doesn't set any precedent as far as filming is concerned. Nothing.
Yeah. That's I mean, my personal take on it too is it was funny is how many people were trying to blow it up, and it was also on part from Atkins' lawyer's side of things trying to blow it up in that direction. But I mean, when you got people that really sort of dig into it, it doesn't look like that. In fact, I think I had a discussion, and what's even funnier is I talked with the lawyer on that issue, and he actually did this huge, like, 6 or 7 page small text written thing of why he views it. I'm just like looking at this, I'm just like, this is a wall of text that makes my brain melt. This is worse than this is worse than reading it. Well, in my opinion, it was worse than reading through the ACLU v. Alvarez case out of Chicago. At least the ACLU v. Alvarez case had interesting arguments made by the judges that made me want to continue reading it.
You thought ACLU v. Alvarez was... I liked ACLU v. Alvarez puts a lot of the First Amendment filming the police stuff into workable, I can understand this, for me anyway. I was just stating it was a wall of text that melts your brain, but you stay with it because they keep it interesting, they try to keep it understanding, and they even went back and were referencing like founding father documents for coming up with their decisions. And that's what made it really interesting for me, especially when I ended up doing that live reading several months back, where I can't remember if I broke out my little bowler hat or whatever, and I started using like an old-timey kind of voice when reading out the old-fashioned stuff there. I'm just like, oh, wow, this is quite interesting. Okay, News Now Tennessee. I've got my lawyering hat on here. And I got a stupid question for you, bud. And don't take this the wrong way. I just want to know. You said your understanding is that they were concerned that you audited the Tennessee Highway Patrol headquarters 45 miles away. You also did an audit in Kentucky, well across the street of a 6-lane highway of the base previous. But then you go on to say, I do not have the letter because it was thrown away before I got home, because they said no way it was me, that they thought it was intended for someone else with my name, but the letter was read to me. So how do you know what the contents of the letter were if it was thrown away before you got home? Or am I missing something?
Touche, yeah. That's you sort of got a little bit of a contradictory kind of thing. I mean, you can't make assumptions on something that's a legal document that you haven't read. That was pushed to you. I would seek to try to get another copy of that if possible, to know exactly what they're trying to serve you with, because I think. And also, go ahead.
You definitely want to figure out what they're barring you for, like if they've trespassed you off the base, or if they're trespassing you from certain events. I mean, you need to know stuff, or else you're going to fall foul of it.
Yeah, it's sort of like with me and my hesitation on doing anything really Second Amendment in certain areas is because there's a lot of legal trip lines that I could trip over, and then because I did not know about it in the first place, I'm not able to defend myself against it properly, and would say I did end up crossing the line on the law. That would put me at an easy conviction at that point, because I can try to say I'm not guilty because ignorance of the law. Well, we already know that doesn't work for the general civilian population, but of course that works for police departments and, well, police officers based off of court rulings in the past. So we got to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We need to make sure we know what we got going at us. Go ahead.
This is going to probably make your brain melt, because it made mine melt. But California has a statute prohibiting carrying a loaded firearm just in public. Like, you can't walk down the street with a loaded rifle strapped across your back, or a loaded handgun.
It's not going to make my brain melt because I've been familiar with that. In fact, I sort of have an understanding of where that came from too, which is quite interesting.
But it gets fun. The police can ask you to check it to see if it's loaded. And if you refuse, that gives them probable cause.
Wait, what?
If you refuse to allow the police to search your weapon to see if it's loaded, statutorily, it states specifically in plain English that gives them probable cause.
I thought actual just open carry of weapons in general was, even empty ones was outlawed. But holy cow, yeah.
No, you can carry a unloaded rifle as long as it's unloaded. But if they ask you if it's loaded, and they ask you if they could see if it's loaded, according to the statutes, you have to let them check it, or that gives them probable cause to arrest you for carrying a loaded firearm. I would never in a million years have believed that asserting a Fourth Amendment right would actually give them the probable cause. I'm going to look that up too.
Yeah, it sort of reminds me actually out of, dang, I can't remember the name of the specific case, but it's actually one of the primary cruxes of you have the right to remain innocent by, James, I can't remember his last name right now off the top of my head. But it covers a case where a guy's silence, it was upheld to be used against him in the court of law when he did not answer a question. His silence.
It's PC 25850, carrying a loaded firearm. And it's subpart B. In order to determine whether or not a firearm is loaded for the purpose of enforcing this section, peace officers are authorized to examine any firearm carried by anyone while on the person or in a vehicle while in any public place or on any public street in an incorporated city or prohibited area of an unincorporated territory. Refusal to allow a peace officer to inspect a firearm pursuant to this section constitutes probable cause for arrest for violation of this section.
I wonder if that's...
That said...
Go ahead, yeah.
That's a 25850. But that said, the case you're referencing where his silence was used against him, it actually kind of sort of wasn't. He had been singing like a jaybird, and then they asked him a question that could have potentially incriminated him, and that's when he shut up.
Yeah. James Dwayne, thank you, NJ Diver. Yeah, and that, and also the other part of where, how should I put it, it's different is he was there consensually. He wasn't arrested. He wasn't being detained or anything like that. He was there, as you stated, singing like a songbird of the questions that were being asked to him. And yeah, you didn't have your full enforcement of your, I guess, your Fifth Amendment rights in that aspect, as James Dwayne there points out.
Yeah, you never want to talk to the police. Ever. Just don't, please.
Yeah, and for me, if I'm going to talk to him, I'm going to make sure it's sure as hell freaking recorded. I think a good example of me forcing that aspect was when I was arrested by Anchorage Police Department there. back, what was that, 2014, I think? Or no, not 2000, but 2016 maybe? A few years back was specific.
The one where you were arrested when Obama was coming to town?
Yeah. Yeah, what's funny is they wanted to ask me questions, and I sat there and said, I'm not going to answer any of your questions unless my camera is on and recording. And they refused on that aspect, and I was like, well, I'm not going to answer your questions. And Secret Service showed up, and what's funny is they had like some guy from the military, some sergeant there, pop up with her, and I think there was some other like probably plainclothes higher up, like FBI or something like that, showed up with the Secret Service lady there, and I was like, I'll have no problem talking to you and asking your questions if my camera is recording. And they said nope, and I'm like, then we have nothing further to discuss, because I knew they were going to refuse to do anything in front of my own cameras.
Absolutely. Did you FOIA all theirs?
I FOIA'd all the police dash cams and all the camera footage I could. I ended up releasing the pertinent ones, the pertinent parts.
I must have missed that.
What was it? It was just, I just released like the dash cam of where I was arrested. I didn't release anything that was after that part because none of the audio was captured from my discussion with them. In fact, there wasn't really much audio in the first place, so it was just straight up video. Yeah.
No. None of the audio was captured. No. Trust us. No, really. No, sorry. We tried to recover the. No. Sorry. The Secret Service. Our mics weren't working that day.
Exactly. I don't trust their equipment to function properly or to record properly. That's why I like to have my own backups, my own devices. And who's to say that even if they do get it all properly recorded, what's to stop some bad apple within their force from making sure it doesn't see the light of day?
That's what my instant assumption is, because I'm going to just go ahead and say that there's no way in hell the Secret Service did not record everything you said from the get-go. That you were probably being recorded long before you even saw a police officer. They probably had mics scattered around and everything.
Yeah, without a doubt, there's probably all kinds of hidden stuff set up. And the thing is the main reason why I was actually dealing with the police for that stuff was I saw a glaring security hole that wasn't being properly policed, and I was discriminately forced out of the area where generally people were allowed to sort of wander in from one direction, just because I had a camera. There was no like standing person dealing with directing people, that checking IDs to see who was allowed in that specific block area down that alleyway. There was no it was just a rowing guard that occasionally maybe said something to someone. And I pointed out in one of the videos that, hey, notice the guy with the backpack walk completely by unmolested? No ID badge or anything? Yeah, I pointed out that it was a huge... They were not properly doing security. And as someone that did security... dealt with security when I was in the military, because I had to pull my fair share of gate guard or security camera watch and stuff like that. That upsetted me the most. You have an extremely high VIP. You set up a perimeter, not properly announcing the perimeter, I can sort of understand, but not properly enforcing it. That's a big issue. That's a big no-no.
Yeah. That also, you examining their security is probably also what really caused them to alert on you.
Oh, yeah. And of course, they used the magistrate's thing. I couldn't go within downtown except for my court, for when I had to go to court on the issue. I was trespassed for, what was it, roughly a month there. Well, at least 3 weeks before I could, before that got done and dealt with. And then I was out without a camera.
Trespassed from, wait, where were you trespassed from?
Well, I was trespassed from a block area, literally, and they stated that I could not go downtown. What was it? I couldn't go anywhere west of C Street, and I couldn't go anywhere, west of C Street, north of 15th Street, with is just giant block of the city that I couldn't go to. And in fact, what's even funnier It's also
Was
that's
that
where all the
automatic camera.
possibly it does 60 frames a second.
Oh Lord, that's why right there, boy. That's just nobody needs a camera that can shoot 60 frames a second.
Yeah, I know. It's got a battery lifespan of 90 minutes, and
That's military grade right there.
Yeah, and the recording time on it is 4.5. Well, about 3.5 hours. 3.5 to 4 hours. Just for the memory card.
Was it black plastic or was it wood grain?
Oh, it was black plastic. That might have been the.
It was an assault camera. That settles it.
Yeah, but yeah, that's just with that specific aspect there. And Eggman eggs probably not. As is, I pushed myself way too much last week. I'm still recovering. I am been in a lot of pain this past week, and there's a lot of stuff I've been needing to do. Paperwork that requires critical thinking and concentration, something in which I have not really had. In fact, it was a miracle I managed to get Wednesday's show going without much of a hitch. So, on that aspect. But I better check the chats real fast to see if there was any other questions that popped up there. Whoops, that's not the chat. And take a quick look. Nothing on the Mike Blue Hair side of things. Where is my YouTube stream here so I can check? Record, please. Any further questions? Okay, NNT, okay, no. Didn't see anything. Okay, yeah, nothing really new. Why don't we go ahead and cover something that I think is it's gonna pique your interest.
Oh boy.
Merbeast. Let's see if I can
hardly wait.
Okay, this actually was written by Tector. Government to court. Driving a car with in Iowa with a valid Iowa temporary tag is a traffic violation. And subtitle from the some stops are more pretextual than others department. And I think you're gonna get an interest of this. We have a new item to add to the list of things law enforcement finds suspicious. And not just that's strange, but rather, let's stop this vehicle and search everyone and everything in it. To date, the long list has been compiled of activities law enforcement finds inherently suspicious, many of which are contradictory or encompass the routine daily activities of millions of non-criminal U.S. citizens. People have been declared suspicious for being too calm or too nervous, for making eye contact and not making eye contact. Talking too much is suspicious. The same goes for not talking enough. Driving roads that connect to major cities is suspicious because all major cities contain both buyers and sellers of drugs. Cops may have argued these activities they've witnessed daily without affecting their an arrest is suddenly suspicious when a traffic stop / fishing expedition results in a drug bust. What do you got to say about that whole opening part?
Okay, so everything is suspicious, but you need reasonable, articulable suspicion to start doing any searches. So I'm waiting to see where we're going on this one.
Okay, and here's it is. An officer with Waterloo, Iowa Police Department is adding something new to an impossibly long list of dubious traffic stop justifications. Driving with a valid Iowa dealer's plates in Iowa, posted by Braid Heath. The traffic stop was initiated because officer witnessed something possibly suspicious 2 days earlier involving a vehicle's officers pulled over 2 days later. A shooting was being investigated by an appellant. Joshua Road was spotted exiting the vehicle in a gang-operated area. At the point the stop was initiated, Road was presumably considered to be a possible gang member, but according to the officer's testimony, he was also suspected to having been the victim of the unreported shooting the officers were investigating. and I'm just gonna step slightly out on a limb here.
Was he black?
I don't know. I don't know if they state that in here. I don't see a picture, so.
I'm just gonna. I don't want to race bait here, but I'm just gonna guess. Possible gang member, gang operated area, and obviously black people shouldn't have dealers play. Black people obviously can't be own car dealerships. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll see about if there's anything in the actual court decision here. Here in a minute on that, but we'll finish reading the article. Based on this weird connective tissue, Sergeant Kyle Richard radioed Officer Diana Del Valle and suggested to initiate a pretextual stop of the vehicle. Del Valle needed a bit of outside prompting to find a traffic violation to trigger the stop. From the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, in quotes, when the BMW departed 10 minutes later, Del Valle followed. She saw that the BMW had a dealer advertising plate instead of a rear license plate, which she had noticed 2 days earlier, and a temporary paper card taped to the inside left rear window. Del Valle radioed Richard and Sullivan she had seen no violations yet. They asked about the card in the back window. Del Valle said, "You can see a plate, but you can't read what's on it." Officer Sullivan replied, "There you go." Del Valle activated the lights on her police cruiser and made an equipment stop.
That sounds reasonable at this point. All the little tags, the temporary tags they give you, have to be placed in a spot where an officer can read them.
Yeah, and it's going to be. Let's see what they got further in. Okay, outside quotes. Probable cause for the stop. Officer Del Valle seemed to think so, but her own testimony shows no traffic violation had occurred. Back to quotes from the actual case. She testified that she could first read the numbers on the temporary card when I got to the trunk area. She did not examine whether the temporary card was valid. It was because I already had the probable cause, which was a temporary tag. I wasn't focused on whether the tag was valid or not at the time. And that's in the quotation from that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that doesn't seem like it's a valid...
If she pulled him over to read the tag, then she had probable cause at that point, or reasonable suspicion, I guess, would be better. I don't know if probable cause would work. But she would have cause to pull him over so that she could examine it. Once she has that detention or that stop, then she could probably ask him for ID at that point.
Yeah, and I actually have a personal relation on something like this. I actually was driving with a temporary tag in the back window of a car when I was in the military, and I got pulled over on the highway. I started speeding because I had this truck that was right up on my butt. It turned out it was a police SUV. It was the Texas Highway Patrol or whatever. And he pulled me over, and he quickly read the tag and he let me know. I couldn't read the tag. I couldn't tell if he had a plate or not. I was like, oh, yeah. And I let him know that the DMV told me to put it on the inside of a vehicle because people were stealing tags in the area at the around the military base. And so I was just doing what the DMV told me to do with that. And there was no good place to put it because it was a hatchback where it would be viewable from the police side of things. And I just went with the best option, which was put it on the window. And if you walk up on the car, you'd see it, but you couldn't see it if you were driving behind me, obviously.
But he did actually go up to the window and talk to you, right?
Well, he just mentioned, he came up, talked to me and said, "Hey, yo, I just wanted to let you know I pulled you over because I couldn't read the tag. I can see it's valid. No worries." I was like, okay, cool. And he let me go. Literally, that was the end of the stop right there.
Okay.
He literally just read the tag, let me know why he pulled me over, let me know I was good to go after that point, after he read it, and I was like, okay, cool. That right there, I can understand it's reasonable, but what's stated here is like, they continue on. But let's go ahead and finish up this and then see about if we can discern the melatonin in this person's skin from the court documents. Okay. But that was exactly the reason she stopped the vehicle. Sergeant Richard prompted to stop, but with, "There you go." But Del Valle carried out the stop based on a completely wrong theory: the possession of a dealer's plate with a traffic violation in and of itself. The district court disagreed and suppressed the weapon found during the ensuing search. The government appealed, arguing Del Valle's inability to read every piece of information contained on the temporary tag in the window gave her probable cause to stop the vehicle. The court disagrees. Temporary tags are required to contain certain information, but nothing in the law says that all the info needs to be immediately visible to the officer following vehicles in all weather at all times of the day. Okay, back to quoting from the court case. Del Valle also did not identify what information she could not see that gave her or Officer Sullivan reasonable suspicion of a violation. If her reference to the letters or numbers meant that the unique vehicle registration letters and numbers on a license plate, which law enforcement officers often use to identify specific vehicles, then she had no reasonable suspicion at all, because Statute 321.25 only requires disclosure of the registration number of the dealer from whom the vehicle was purchased and the date of the delivery of the vehicle. If she meant that the dealer's registration number, she did not even explain why she needed to see that when she could plainly see a dealer's advertising plate in the BMW's license plate location. If she meant the expiration date, and nothing in the record even hints that, neither Del Valle nor Richard testified as to their basis for believing that the requirement in Statute 321.25 that this information be plainly stamped or stenciled on a temporary card meant that unless it is readable at night from a pursuing police vehicle, the vehicle is likely breaking the law. Now, out of quotes, temporary tags must be visible and legible at all times from any distance, is the government's argument. That's the corner it painted itself into with Officer Del Valle's testimony and his insistence on appealing to the lower court's decision. The appeals court quotes the lower case ruling, hammering out the home some of the fact the government should have known the stop was initiated without probable cause and could have cut its losses at the district level. Go ahead.
No, that was a like that's weird kind of I wasn't like I have something important to say.
Yeah, Desert Sentinel, I already mentioned earlier, I'm not, I don't plan on doing any bar hopping tonight. I'm not sure about Saturday. I'm still really bad out of it with my knees. Murby's Bunny Boots Inc. Are there any other pending cases you know of that might go to SCOTUS for this issue? I don't know of any other pending cases possibly making an attempt at going at SCOTUS dealing with filming in public or just in general videography. There could be an underlying one that hasn't been publicized to our knowledge in that aspect. So it's just
I don't think anything has gotten to the appeals court as far as videoing in public. I think all the appeals courts are pretty much in line with videoing the police. It would be really hard to come up with some sort of time, place, or manner restriction that would somehow make taking pictures or videos in public reasonable, or banning making videos in public unreasonable. So it's I don't foresee the Supreme Court having to deal with something like this. The only thing I could see possibly getting to the Supreme Court would be where there's an eavesdropping issue. That might do it because there's a lot of eavesdropping statutes, or if someone is in a public place videoing where they use the zoom on their camera to see something that they shouldn't see, that somebody believes would be private because it wouldn't be visible to the naked eye or something like that. That's the only thing I could really see causing enough controversy to get up there.
And I mean, there's already sort of precedence on that in a way with was it the Florida v. Riley, I think it is, with the being viewed from a helicopter, and then there is actually a privacy court case out in New York. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, involving a photographer who was filming. He was taking pictures of people in their apartments across the street from him, and he won that court case. He publicized the pictures. He didn't give off any identifying information or anything within the published the photography that he put up in an art institute or something like that. And the courts ruled in his favor because he was in a place where he was allowed to be at, and these people had their windows fully open where you could see in. So the expectation of privacy for that specific issue was out the window. Though I think it was, I can't remember if it was a group of people, a group of residents in that building, or it was just one, a couple or something like that pushed that lawsuit and lost. And that was just at a district level, so it doesn't really necessarily set precedents, but it does sort of give grounds of an idea of where something like that would end up going in the future.
Yeah, you have to have a reasonable expectation of privacy for the eavesdropping things to kind of kick in. That being said, cameras are getting better and better and zooming further and all this other fun stuff. So, and there's more of them. So I'm not saying that it's going to go there. I'm just saying that it's going to be something interesting and tricky. It's not just going to be filming on a street. It's going to have to be something interesting to get to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and I think an interesting case that probably would end up before the Supreme Court, in my opinion, is, I don't know if you heard about it, where the government's been contracting out this one private company where they fly around with these giant cameras for they'll fly around the city going in a giant circle, for 4 or 5 hours, and they just take pictures every I think it's every 20 seconds or something like that, and they've used it to map people's movements on the streets, and bust people, and I see that being the next possible thing. But the way the court's ruling, the way they want to have that power, I don't think there's going to be a privacy issue per se, because guess what? You're out in public, you're viewable from a public place. Yeah, the expectation of privacy, but you're also stepping into the surveillance state issue. But then again, when you think about it, what's to stop someone who is not part of the government from doing it? So,
they're doing it all the time. Google is constantly getting satellite pictures and having cars drive around. You're constantly under video. But the thing with the part taking pictures every couple of minutes, that is a very interesting case. I don't think it's going to fall. The only way they get people, the only way the courts have kind of held that you're actually violating someone's Fourth Amendment right to be free of government searches and seizures and all that stuff, is if they're actually attaching a tracking device onto you. If they're just looking, then
yeah, if they're following you from, they're telling you or whatever, that's a completely different issue than versus them attaching some sort of device that allows them to gather data directly from your presence, or to your vehicle. You need a warrant to attach a tracking device to a vehicle. But with these kinds of things where you can set up an aerial vehicle, whether it be an aerostat blimp or, a regular Cessna airplane or something like that, to do that kind of stuff, at that point it becomes more like you're just putting someone on a following operation where they're following someone.
Yeah. There's no difference between that and tailing somebody.
Yeah. And NJ Diver, I did not know that Sexy Prez and Buck G are actually pushing the flashlight issue with a court case. That is quite interesting. And NJ Driver stated,
is interesting.
Murby East, Bunny Boots Inc., are you aware Sexy Prez, Buck G are suing over the use of flashlights to violate their right to video? I think actually they have something in California on that, and I know in Colorado that would actually get the police hemmed up with the way their law is written, if I remember correctly, about people's right to film.
I don't think there's a constitutional issue with it.
Yeah. And that's part of the reason why it's just I want to get one of those two-way mirrors kind of thing. It just have that on hand where if I'm out there filming and the cops go and try to shine the light on me, I just want to, as what? I'm returning, as I angle it to return the light directly into their face. It's what? I'm just returning your photons.
But you gotta remember, before you do that, officer safety is this this umbrella of authorization for them to do all sorts of just insanely stupid things. So I can't recommend you doing that.
Yeah, it's not recommended, but as is, or when it comes down to it, it's going to be like the courts are going, why the hell are you in front of me, you two stupid kids? If you got a reasonable judge, obviously.
Now, you're banking on a lot there, buddy.
Yeah, in Texas probably not, but or some California municipalities, we know there's bad judges out there. But I mean, as I stated, yeah.
Texas has great judges as far as the Second Amendment is concerned. California, believe it or not, for all the crap it gets, has great First Amendment law. California's Constitution, allowing for freedom of speech, is much broader than the First Amendment. So, like in California, the courts have held it. You have a right to freedom of speech in a shopping mall. Yeah, the semi-private kind of thing. I several years ago I was looking into that. I was trying to see, is there any other state that sort of has anything like that? But to my sad disappointment, it was mainly just California had something along that lines. California, you can the parking lot of a prison, you can have First Amendment activities there. It's really crazy. Like I don't know if you saw the Johnny 5-0 video he released today. Maybe
no, as I said, I haven't really been paying attention to much. Either I've been in and out of sleep, or I just been in so much pain I haven't been able to focus on anything. So.
Yeah, he was filming in the courtyard and in the lobby of a jail down in LA, and the little jail guy marched out. And, oh, you can't film here, blah, blah, blah. But probably he can, because California has great freedom of speech laws, and even the trespassing, the 602.1, they've got exceptions cut out for First Amendment activities. Now, those are mainly targeted towards like protesting and things like that. But I mean, California does the First Amendment. California does freedom of speech really well, and Texas does the Second Amendment really well. So maybe if we could just get them together and have little baby states, then that'd be great.
What was it? The up in Alaska with the Anchorage arrest there, the ordinance they actually arrested me on, because the ordinance allows the city ordinance of trespass allows for trespass from public spaces, actually. But it lays out, there was a lawsuit over it, went up to the Alaska Supreme Court, and they had to change the law to allow for they had to give a First Amendment exception. That might have been what something similar might have happened over there in California. And so with my arrest, when they're trying to charge me underneath the city ordinance, the prosecutor probably looked at it and goes, "We don't have anything here." It literally was like, yeah, your case is going to be dropped. When I talked with him after, I think it was like 3 days waiting, and I contacted back with him. He's just like, this is not going to be worth it. Go ahead.
Eventually, one of these auditors who are going into the police stations and stuff are going to get hemmed up on it. But if you're wondering why in California they're so like, get out of our police station, but then they don't really do anything. I guess they did to Nathaniel, but they aren't really taking a lot of action on these guys, because it's like federally speaking, airports aren't they're not public forums. There's the International Society for Krishna Consciousness v. Lee, I believe it is, where the U.S. Supreme Court said the First Amendment, you don't have a right to First Amendment activities mostly in airports. California's like, yeah, sure, have fun. If you want to leaflet and stuff, absolutely, go on in, knock yourself out. So
yeah, if I remember correctly, there was a court case back when, sometime after 2010, that came about and went to the appeals court, and he got slapped down dealing with the First Amendment aspect of because he did some sort of like weird protesting and filming it, and he was denied on that aspect in the appeals court. I think he ended up like some $30,000 in debt or something like that from it. The court case. I'm not sure the total amount. It'd take me a while to dig it back up. But the reason why he got hemmed up because he actually tried to not just film, he was also trying to institute some sort of like free speech with some sort of sign or shirt or something written on him. I can't remember specifically, but they were trying to argue that aspect, and I'm just like, I could see where this possibly would work against that case, probably because it went to the appeals court, from what I understand. It could work against me against filming the TSA. But then again, the TSA has publicly came out and stated that you can film their checkpoints, and we are legally allowed to do that. And they changed up the verbiage on that, I think, recently on that. Go ahead.
The TSA said that they're not going to stop you from doing it, but the airports themselves still have a lot of control over that. So if you're not in California, you may not be allowed to film. You probably will, but if you start making because I mean, think about it, everybody films in the airport, right?
Oh,
so if they're going to try to stop you from filming, they've always got to have a reason for it. And let's see, so it would probably if they're trying to stop you from filming, but they're not trying to stop everybody from filming, then that would be some sort of a content or a viewpoint-based restriction, which means it would most likely be strict scrutiny, which means that most likely the government would lose on it. So they probably can't, but they could still hassle you. And if they say that you're causing a disturbance or something, then there could be ramifications.
Yeah, and there's also, big reason is I'm probably going to be very resistant on that if they do try to push anything on that aspect. Is just due to the fact I am there to travel. I am at that airport specifically waiting for my flight or whatever, and I'm documenting what government officials are doing for either news purposes or whatever purposes I plan on doing. Well, I decide to do with that footage, and
absolutely that would be a great case, one that I think would probably set good precedent if you were willing to miss your flight and get arrested over it.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing is when you go out there, one of the things I want to point out to people is when you go out there, try not to combine too many issues into one aspect. If you're there to film, try to do that specifically for filming. If you're going to do like a Second Amendment kind of thing, be there specifically for the Second Amendment. If you're there to like do protests for free speech or something like that, try to keep it on those grounds. It's easier to get things pushed through the courts if you push one big important item and have your focus on that. And I think actually that was probably the downfall with the Atkins case, was it was pushing a lot of things at once. In my sort of opinion, they were pushing on quite a few incidences in one big thing. But then again, they're also trying to push for a conspiracy charge too. Go ahead.
The problem with the Atkins case was there was a stupid judge.
Yeah, that too. I do agree.
Call a spade, man. I mean, that was just the world's dumbest judge.
Yeah, but let's go ahead and finish this up real fast, and then see if we can determine melatonin content here. Back to quoting from the article from the court decision. As the district court recognized, the government position in the case would mean that an Iowa police officer may stop a vehicle displaying a proper form of temporary registration card whenever the officer cannot read the dealer registration number and the card's expiration date from inside the officer's following police cruiser. Out of quotes. Back to the article itself. The appeals court refuses to grant the officer good faith, pointing out the government failed to raise this argument at the lower level. Even if it had, the appeals court wouldn't have allowed the government to use this escape hatch. Back to quoting from the case itself. Even if not forfeit, the argument that the officers made a reasonable mistake of Iowa law is without merit. It is not reasonable to construe the requirement of a plainly stamped or stenciled information in 321.25, the statute there, as meaning information that can be read from a pursuing police cruiser. On the other hand, if the government is arguing that Officer Del Vara or Sullivan reasonably believed there was reasonable suspicion to make a traffic stop, mistakes about the requirement of a Fourth Amendment violate the Fourth Amendment even when they are reasonable. And that is the end of the article.
That's true.
The
officer can make a mistake about like I saw him put something that looked like pot in his pocket or something like that. If the officer is wrong, that doesn't mean that his probable cause was that everything gets suppressed as a result of that. If the officer can make a mistake about what they think they saw, but they can't make a mistake. Oh, you know what? I thought probable cause meant that he had dealer plates. Oh, nope. Sorry, dude.
Yeah, let's see. Fucking who's involved in the stop is I how should I put this? Okay. Joshua Road is the name of the person I think that's pushing the case here. Yeah, he's the defendant, Apolli, that the driver that's being charged. And Tovin Lamora. Here, I'll just go ahead and post this in the general chat here, so you can get an idea. Okay. I suspect at least one of them probably had a high melatonin content with that second name, which I'm having a hard time pronouncing it. I suspect that second person has a higher melatonin content, just the way the name is. I could be wrong. This is all just pure speculation.
Yeah, it is speculation, but it is speculation based on statistics and crime stats and all that other fun stuff. They were looking. If an officer is looking for a reason to pull a car over, there's very few potential reasons for that. You saw with Akins v. Knight, the guy had a lot of run-ins with the cops. They're always going to be looking for a reason to pull him over. He had firearms charges. He had pot charges. He had all these sorts of different charges, right? So every time they see him, they know he's going to be good fun. And then these guys, they were watching him. It's, it is what it is. I'm not saying that it's unwarranted attention. I'm not saying anything about that. I'm just saying that statistically speaking, it was likely that there was melatonin involved in that traffic stop.
Yeah. No, I've got the wrong term, the wrong chemical. Melatonin's for sleeping. Melanin.
Yeah.
Melanin. The melanin content of the skin. Yeah.
I'll roll with it. Maybe he had a good night's sleep the night before too. Who knows?
I just posted it, Ed. It should be coming to you, or it should already been posted there. But yeah, as is, we are nearing the top of the second hour and all that stuff. Murphy's, do you want to plug anything before we end the live stream here?
No. If you want to come over to my channel and insult me, feel free. If you want to come over and see me struggle with First Amendment and all sorts of other things, that would be great too. I obviously can't give anybody legal advice because I'm not your lawyer. I am a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. And I'm just having fun looking at laws and interacting with members of the community.
Oh yeah, and I do value his perspective. He has takes that are different from mine. He has given me quite good criticisms from the past, from what I've seen, and as is, I like him as a counterbalance. So I do recommend checking out his channel. And for those of you who don't really know, well, the proper spelling is done in for his channel name in the title there. That is how it's what his channel name is specifically. So that should
not quite.
Put you right up.
I am MERB34ST.
34ST. Oh, did I mix that up?
It's
Oh.
okay.
Oh,
I wasn't
okay.
going to say nothing.
Yeah, I will fix that right now. Okay, so fixing. There we go. Yeah, so that was a typo on my part. There you go. The updated title will have it properly. Anyway, I will go ahead and plug Mike Blue Hair stuff for him since he is out sick still. Well, now he's sick. He had a different kind of medical issue for Wednesday. That's why he wasn't able to attend, be part of that episode of Strategic Noncompliance. But as is, check out Mike Blue Hair's channel. He does cop watching and all that stuff. Help him out on steemit. Check him out on there where he posts articles and updates of what he's got going on. As is, he's also got, that's right, it was Virtual Shield VPN referral links for those of you who want to have a VPN and get some extra privacy on that aspect. So this way it'd be harder for the government to look at you, or for potentially people backtrack you to DDoS your connection while you're live streaming. There is that kind of benefit. To further output for myself, as is, this is Strategic Noncompliance. It's on twice a week on both mine and Mike Blue Hair's channel. 3 p.m. Pacific time frame on Wednesdays. So this way East Coast people can have a chance to tune in live and participate in the chat. And Fridays at 6 p.m. Pacific time frame. So this way West Coast people who have a chance to get off work will be able to have a chance to participate if they're not out partying and enjoying themselves or getting ready to go out there. Who knows, you can go ahead and catch. Anyway, furthermore, you can catch me possibly doing weekend bar hop, which I do. I try to do at least twice a month. Try not to push myself too much and all that stuff. Where I go out and check out the bars in the Bermuda Triangle here in Eugene, and see if anybody is getting arrested, or hang out with possibly other people that do live streaming or whatever in the area. But further beyond that, enjoy your weekend. Hopefully you have a good time. If I'm able to get the mood in, maybe I'll try to get out there and do some bar hopping this weekend, but I strongly think that's probably not going to happen unless I end up pre-gaming it. So, yes, NJ Diver, I know you are on the East Coast, and unfortunately I didn't have a chance to check out your link. I'll check it out after the live stream here when I go ahead and end it. Everybody, you guys have a good night, and hopefully Mike Blue Hair will be well enough and be able to join us next week. I do plan on having Merbeast on in future iterations of Strategic Noncompliance or other case law discussions that I do specifically within my channel. So keep that in mind. So you'll probably see more of him in the future. As is, have a good night.
All right. Night, dude.